So I'm going to get us started. And if you do have questions about the chat or can't get in it, just I'm not quite sure how to tell you other than to let us know somehow. So I'm going to welcome everybody to Future Ready with the library and our informational session. I am here, hold on, I am here with my colleagues Carol and Allison, and you see this is Future Ready with the library cohort 2. Wow. Allison, we're all on the left side, I realize. Carol's the closest to the middle. So Carol is there, smiling away with glasses and the striped shirt. Allison is in the middle of the three of us with the glasses and the patterned shirt. I didn't realize that that was going to be the case. And we're all glasses people at this point. And I am on the left. So the arrows you see, I am on the left with the glasses and the black. So this is all of us, and we're going to be taking turns talking today about Future Ready, what the project is all about, and then the application process. Allison is one of our cohort members for cohort 2, so she actually gets to talk about the work she's been doing over the past few months. I'm the project manager for the project with YALSA, and I make sure everything's going along the way it should be. And Carol, what do you do for the project?
I am the curriculum writer. So I help figure out what kinds of activities we do when we come together. Like we'll all be coming together in November, but also what kinds of activities we will do throughout the year to promote what we're doing, and also to learn new skills and do professional development and those kinds of things.
Great. Thank you, Carol. So we've got an agenda for today, and you should be seeing that now. And like I said, we're going to take turns, and feel free in the chat to ask questions. And then when I say any questions, or when Carol says any questions, or Allison says any questions, you should feel free to use your mic as well. But if you're thinking of something while we're just one of us is speaking, feel free to put that in the chat. So we're in the welcome and the introductions and the overview of what we're going to be covering today. I'm going to start with talking about what Future Ready with the library is all about, and Carol and Allison may chime in. Then Allison has some great examples of the work she's been doing since February. It's really not that much, but Allison's one of the cohort 2 members who have jumped right in, and but it's not that it hasn't been that long. She's been doing a lot of work. I said that wrong. So she's got some great examples, and it will give you a good sense of the kinds of things that we'll be looking for people to be working on if you are in cohort 3. Then we'll talk about what it looks like to go through a year of this, the application process, the selection process, and then any questions that you have. It should be a full hour, but we definitely want to give you time to ask us questions and get an idea of what this project is all about. So before we go on, does anybody have any questions to get started about how all of the technology works or anything like that?
Hey, Linda, maybe we could, for those who have chat capabilities, just to type in their name and say hello.
Cool. Yeah.
We can see how many people we have and who we might be missing as far as being able to type in or anything.
Yeah, and feel free to say where you're from as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That'd be great. So go ahead and take a second to do that. We've got Pennsylvania, Washington, Kansas, and actually we should say I'm in Seattle. I'm not rural. Carol, where are you?
I'm in Bellingham, Washington, which is fairly, not rural, but a much smaller town than Seattle. Yes, I just moved here from Seattle.
That's great. And Allison,
we have somebody from Concrete.
I don't even know where that is.
You're in it's Skagit County or Whatcom County.
Cool. Oh, Whatcom. Okay.
Close to me, at least.
And Allison, where are you from?
I am in LaGrange, Texas.
Yeah. So Allison, and we all have, Allison is in a rural, small location. And Carol has a lot of experience. Carol grew up in rural, small location, and I have worked in rural, small locations. So we all have background in one way or another. So great. Yeah, well, this project is all for rural, tribal, and small libraries. So that's great that that's where all of you are from. I love seeing all these different places. Small library. Yep, that counts. So, all right, I'm going to keep us going. And just want to give you, you may have read about this project, but I want to give you a sense of really what the focus is of what this project is. It's an IMLS funded project. We've had 2 cohorts so far. The first one finished in December of 2017. And the cohort that's working now that Allison is in is going to finish in January of 2018. This cohort will start in November of 2018. So we have a little bit of an overlap between the second and third cohort. But the whole idea is to work with small, rural, and tribal libraries to help you build college career readiness services for middle school youth and families. And one of the key pieces of this that I keep harping on a lot, and Carol and does too, and that Allison is building on, is we really, when we talk about college and career readiness for middle school students, we're not focused on SAT or FAFSA or any of those kinds of things. We're really focused on looking at what middle schoolers are interested in and how to help them take those interests and passions and turn them into a potential college or career ready pathway. We're huge focus on working with your community to do that and really thinking about who in your community and how to connect with them to provide services. So the story I always talk about is in cohort 1, someone who worked with a funeral home director as someone who had a career path that middle school students could be interested in. And so we're looking for things that are very specific to a particular community and not just works anywhere. You work with a cohort that really supports each other. And this cohort, cohort 2, has like taken off and really done that well. And so Allison can talk a little bit about that. And then we really want to think about how learning about the community can help middle school youth. So Carol, what do you add to that?
Well, just the same, along the same lines, it's about awareness. You know, what we're finding is that a lot of middle schoolers have absolutely no thought, neither is anyone asking them kind of what they're thinking about doing or what they like to do or how, you know, and that large part of this is just about trying to get folks to be thinking, both the students and their parents, thinking along the lines of what they might want to pursue before they get to high school, because as we know, in some places by the time they get to high school, they may wind up there with not a whole lot of preparation. So it's just kind of, and it's opening up their world, really. Yeah, that's really what we're hoping to do. Open up their world and open up their awareness and open up their options, make them, give them a lot more choices. And they may come to this already.
And Allison, do you have any addition to that about how you would describe what this is all about?
Oh gosh, yes. I was gonna kind of go into everything too about when I talked about what I had been working on.
So your slide is, oh, no. So do you want to hold that until we get to your slide?
Can I hold it?
Okay.
Can I hold it? Okay.
Yes, we can hold it. That sounds a little weird. So I'm going to keep going, but type in questions because we'll get to Allison's slide. So here are the key concepts that relate to what we were just saying. These are things we're really focusing on in the learning that we do with those who participate. So we focus on you're learning all the time. It's not just you take a class, a one-off webinar or something and you're done. It's like you're always learning about your community, you're learning about youth, you're learning about libraries. Social emotional learning is a really big part of what we talk about. And if you don't know what that is, that's perfectly fine. Those are the kinds of skills we work to help. Libraries always have done this, but help young people to gain skills like self-awareness, self-management, decision-making, teamwork, those kinds of things. And so we talk a lot about how social emotional learning plays a role into the work that young people might do, and the how they successfully can be in a career, how they successfully can be in a college experience. Connected learning, Carol just said about thinking about teen interests and how those play into what they might want to do. So how you connect the interests. Building community partnerships, so thinking about who there is in the community that one can work with. And then all of this together, college career pathways based on interests and community. So those are the big, go ahead, Carol.
I was just going to say about the community partnerships. Yeah. That is such a big aspect of what we are do in this program. And we have people who've lived in their community all their life. And one of the ways that we are really striving, things that we're striving for, is to get people to connect with their community in a different way, look at their community in a different way, and understand their community in ways they might not have done. And I have to say, that is one of the feedback that we get very strongly, is that people actually do that. There's a lot, we spend a lot of time on how we can do community assessments and reach out and connect people we never connected with before that can be helpful. So community partnerships is a huge aspect of what we work with here. So.
Absolutely. And I think just to add to that is that we do not expect you to do this alone. And I think that I said that on the earlier slide, but Carol and I, and there are always two coaches who work with the participants to help learn and move through these activities and things. But also the cohort is, I said this already, just ends up being an incredible support team for each other. And it's a pretty impressive thing to see. So before we go forward, and I think the very next slide is Allison. Does anybody have any general questions so far that any of us can answer? You can say it or type it.
Leanne typed something.
Oh, cool.
Question about the cohorts, the 3 cohorts.
Yeah. So there will be by the end 3 cohorts. That we're in our second one, and funding is for 3. Who knows how we may end up? We may end up with more. But for the moment, there are 3. We have funding from IMLS for 3 cohorts. Anything
and the idea is that these cohorts, what we learn in these cohorts, unlike most grants, is that we are going to be learning from small and rural and tribal libraries, taking some of what we have learned and practiced here in these 3 cohorts to help larger systems of, apply these ideas, which it hardly ever goes that way.
Right.
That's a big piece of what we're doing.
It's a really good point. So I'm going to keep us going, but feel free if you've got a question to type it in the chat. But I'm going to turn it over to Allison, and she's going to talk a little bit about what she's been doing and all the different kinds of things going on with Cohort 3. Go, Allison.
Okay. So my name is Allison Shimmick, and I am the director of the Fayette Public Library in LaGrange, Texas, which is community between Austin and Houston. We're in Central Texas, and our service population is a little over 4,700, but I think it's probably more than that. But I am going to talk a little bit about why I applied for Future Ready with the library, what the application process was like for me, and also about what I have been up to. So one of the reasons I applied was that my library did not really offer services and programs geared for teens. And there's libraries in the cohort that have that are already offering teen programs, but there's also libraries that don't. So if you're not offering any programs already, that's okay. You'll be like me. And so it was something I was very passionate about, being able to offer teens services and programs that would make a difference. And I also just wanted to learn more about teens and community engagement. And so that's why I decided to apply. Before applying, I also sat down with coworkers and staff and my supervisor, which is the city manager, to kind of talk about what the requirements of the project were and how I was going to make the requirements fit into my schedule and how that would impact other staff. So the application says it's about 2 to 3 hours a week. And I think that that's a fair average. I think some weeks you might spend more and some weeks you might spend less. But you definitely do need to think about how that will fit into your schedule. And if you do work in a library where you have to staff the circulation desk, you might need to think about how you'll be able to work that out, because it's really important to get out and about in the community. So you'll have to see how that looks for you. So everyone was very supportive. I applied and I was asked to be part of Cohort 2. Yay. And so the next kind of step is we had our orientation in Denver, and that was a lot of fun and we learned a lot. So all of the other librarians from small, rural, and tribal libraries that are a part of the cohort all came together, and we learned a lot about social emotional learning, about teens, and about just learned a lot from each other and about each other's communities. So it was really great. And we were able to make connections. I have several people that we're in group text together, and we all friended each other on Facebook. So it's really a great support system that you get to create. We text back and forth sometimes a couple times a week, and even if it's not just for this project, but ask questions about other things as well. So it's really a great way to see what other people in a similar situation in small communities are doing in their libraries. So I think that was really, really, really beneficial. Once I got back from Denver, the work started, and so I got started with meeting with people in my community. I met with teens, I met with the school, I met with organizations, basically anyone that would sit down and talk to me about what they felt the challenges were for teens in our community and what they felt the teens needed. And so basically this was a lot of information gathering, and through this process, I met people I would not normally interact with on a regular basis. And it really opened my eyes to all the opportunities in my community that I had been missing out on by not previously meeting with banks, with businesses, with all of these other community organizations. So it was really helped in identifying possible partners for this project, as well as future partners for other projects. It really gave me an opportunity to learn more about teens in our community. And I even got invited to I got invited to attend a middle school, high school field trip to the new Austin Central Library in Texas, which if I had never put myself out there by going out and meeting with members of our community, I would not have been given that opportunity. And I learned a lot doing that as well. So every month, Carol comes up with wonderful activities and videos and readings for us. And some of the activities that we've done are what these pictures are here. So one of the first activities we did was the Snowball Activity. And so the Snowball Activity is you take a group and you form a circle, and they get paper and pencil, and I asked them what their interests or hobbies were outside of school. So they write it on the paper, they crumple it up, and then they throw it to the middle of the room. Well, the slide on the right, we had a really open space, so I allowed them to kind of snowball fight, which they really liked. So they threw the papers back and forth. And so then they open up one person opens up the balled paper and they read out what's on there. So this was beneficial to me because I was learning more about their interests and their hobbies that I didn't previously know. And then we kind of moved from what their interests were, what they were passionate about, to, well, what kind of careers kind of relate with that, or what kind of skills does it require to play a sport, or what kind of skills does it require to be great at playing video games, or whatever their hobby was. And then we tried to connect that to a career. And so it got easier the second time I did it. The first time we had a little trouble making some connections, but it really did get better. And they were able to really start to realize that they have all these amazing skills and they're learning all these things doing activities that they're passionate about. And so that definitely was eye-opening, and learning more about all the skills that they already have that they may not realize they're developing. And then there's another, I did it with another group in the middle school. I did it with an 8th grade leadership group as well. And the other group was the community theater. So the second time I did it, I feel like I was able to get more in-depth response, and I feel like I did a better job facilitating. And so that's just kind of an example of something interactive that we get to do while learning. And another activity is kind of community walk-arounds or drive-throughs if your community is a little bit bigger. And that's kind of something that'll teach you more about your community by taking a step back and taking a different way to your job, or maybe just exploring some roads you've never been down, and walking down some streets you may not have walked down before, and taking a step back with fresh eyes and kind of looking at where the surpluses in industry are in your community, and where the kind of like where there's lack, and kind of identifying who the employers are, who are the big employers in your community, and maybe identifying those people to talk to ask, what are we looking for in employees, and what skill sets are people missing, and what do we need to do better? And that's something that I've been learning a lot doing my drive. I went and spent about 45 minutes yesterday going through and looking at things and making a list of all the employers that I might have missed. So those are just 2 examples of some of the activities that Carol's given us to engage in our community, and just learn. So I'm gonna wrap up a little bit and just talk about some things when you apply to keep in mind, and some things I've learned is that the project does take commitment. It will take you being committed and passionate about it, and really, wanting to learn about your community. It'll also involve getting out of the library and doing activities that you may not have ever done before. So you might have to go outside of your comfort zone a couple of times or more. Snowball activities were a little scary for me at first, but they went well. It also involves being active in the online community, which is really, really supportive. So we also have an online community where we can share how our activities are going, and how if things were successful or if things weren't successful. And it's a really great support system, because people are open to, hey, I tried this and it didn't work. Does anybody have an idea of what I could do differently next time? Or they ask questions about, well, I was thinking about doing this, or I'm going to make a survey. What types of questions do you think I could answer or ask? And so it's been really, really supportive in having those questions answered, and really learning from each other and from each other's experiences. The project really has changed the way I think about my community and the way that I work on a regular basis. And I think it's shown me a lot more opportunities for partnership in my community. And it is a project that you will learn a lot from. And I encourage everyone that's thinking about applying to apply, if they are able to make the commitment. It's just, I've learned a lot, but I don't know. That's all I have for now, I think. But I'm looking at question. Now I'm looking at the chat to see.
So there's one question from Leanne, and then other people should feel free to either type or talk. So Leanne, do you see the one about school support?
Yes. So as far as the schools, and this is an interesting thing, and this is why activities. So the interesting thing is, I always thought that the school would not be somebody that would be helpful or supportive, because I've had other interactions in the past. But when I reached out this time, they were actually incredibly supportive of the project and asked how they could help, and have been great about getting me information about what the teens are doing in school, what they're not doing in school, where the gaps are, what they think the skill gaps are, and providing a lot of information. And they've also been supportive about meeting with me. I've met with our middle school principal. I've met with our assistant superintendent for the school district. I have met with the middle school counselor. So they've really been supportive about making time to sit down and chat about things like that. I don't know if the school will necessarily be a partner, but the school doesn't have to be a partner. So that's hopefully, but it just shows you that sometimes some partnerships might not seem like a possibility, or maybe you've had bad experiences in the past. But sometimes if you just take that chance and reach out, it might be a different situation that time.
Anybody else have other questions for Allison?
Great job, Allison.
Yeah.
You know, you really nailed it in terms of what you've done and what you've been able to do, and your openness to it all has really been a big part of how well it's going for you, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you have to be very, very open.
It helps.
Yeah. It does, yeah.
Yeah, and actually that makes me think of one of the things on the application, and we are going to talk a little bit more about the application in a bit, but one of the things that's on the application is at the end, it does ask people to think about how comfortable they are with risk, how comfortable they are with ambiguity, those kinds of things. And we ask those, we really want people to think about that, because this is not a project, as Carol always says, it's an experiment. But it's not a project where there's an out-of-the-box way for what you're going to do with your community. We're going to give you support and help to learn from your community in order to decide those kinds of things. But we're not going to give you the answers, because there is no one answer. So to really just think about what Allison was saying was that she's thinking about different things differently, and she's trying things out. And the snowball, I love that example. Like, you were nervous about doing the snowball, but you went and did it anyway, twice.
Yeah, and the second time was a lot easier, and you got, because you were more familiar with it, you got better answers, and
Right.
And I'll probably do it again with it. Yeah,
exactly.
And one of the other things, I'm actually just going to go, let's just keep talking about this, but this slide shows you some of the expectations and what a year is like. One of the other things is when we have the monthly chats, which is one of the bullets on here, and Allison mentioned, is other people go, oh my gosh, I'm scared to do it too. And so you are never alone. And it just is, so many times people have said, I'm not quite sure how to do this. And other people have chimed in and said, me neither. Let's figure it out together. So that's been a really powerful, particularly with Cohort 2, has been really powerful for us all, I think. So let's talk a little bit about what a year is like, and either type things in or ask questions. And I'm not going to read this whole slide because it's there. And I should also say that this is being recorded, and it will get pushed out in lots of different ways. I will send it to everyone who registered, so you don't have to hear it word for word. But there's a couple of things we haven't talked about specifically. One is a orientation meeting that we'll have probably in September for those who are accepted. And Carol and I realized we did not do it for Cohort 1. Realized, Carol, am I speaking for you? It was a mistake not to do it for Cohort 1.
We just didn't know. We just, we are learning as well. So we barely got people, approved and on the program by the time it was ready to start. So,
right.
Yeah. But by the second time, we knew that if we could get people together before we got to our big meeting where we all met together, to start creating relationships, because a lot of this program is about relationships between the cohort and also within your community. So that has the second cohort has proven to be so much more cohesive because we were able to get together. And then when we met each other, we knew something about each other. So.
Right, exactly. So we'll have an hour-long meeting using Zoom for those who are in the third cohort and talk about what to expect, talk about some of the things related to the meeting in November, and just give people a chance to get to start to know each other and also get to start to know the web community of practice. So that will be, we have no specific date or time for it. Carol and I will figure that out as it gets closer, but that's something that if you're in the cohort, you'll be expected to attend. And then the first really big thing is the day and a half this year in November in Salt Lake City, and that's the full cohort, me, Carol, the two coaches who we do not know who those coaches are yet because we take them from the previous cohort. So we'll have two coaches from cohort 2 and the speakers, and we spend a day and a half. So Allison, was that exhausting, exciting? What was it like? I know you talked about the bonding and things, but what was it like?
I thought it was very fun. And the speakers were really great. Before this information session, I went back and I looked at my notes and I was going through all the notes I took when we were in Denver, and I remembered the speaker we had who spoke about, having a culture of dignity and those activities that we did about, and I want to do that one activity with the leadership and around the world. I mean, do all these really great interactive learning activities that really kind of open your mind and teach you about teens and about how they're viewed in our community, and about how to approach conversations with them and things like that. But I mean, I personally didn't find it too exhausting. I did learn a lot, but it wasn't overwhelming. It was overwhelming once you got home, but
and that it's in Salt Lake City before the YALSA symposium. That also gives you the opportunity. YALSA pays for the 2 nights hotel and travel. We can't pay for, and the meals at the session. So there's 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and 1 dinner, and that all gets paid for by this funding. But if you have funds and are able to add hotel nights on and meals for the symposium, we like to give that opportunity to people, so you would be able to attend that as well. Carol, can you talk a little bit more about the monthly activities?
Well, now we've had the benefit of a whole year of going through it, and in the first few months of this new cohort, and so we're able to see, we've got ideas. We're always looking for more ideas to try to keep things fresh, but we're looking for really interactive things that help you relate to. It could be relating with your staff, or it can be relating with your teens or their parents, or your board of directors, or the Chamber of Commerce, or the Kiwanis Club. It's a way of giving you tools to work with a wide variety of people in your community, because the folks in your community have a vested interest in keeping the young people in their community. There's a lot of reasons for that, and so they are remarkably interested. In so many cases, nobody's even asked them or talk to them about it. So we try to vary the community activities with, something to do, something to watch, whether it's some kind of a TED talk or something that's been done on middle school interventions, things like that, or lots of things, something to read. So we want you to be the experts at the end of this. We want you to know more in the general public about middle school, college and career readiness and the trends. Things are changing out there in the college and career world. So we're trying to keep, bring you around and give you things to read and think about. So we say, personally, I have a really low tolerance for boredom. And so we try to keep it fresh and interesting and give you something to talk about amongst yourselves. You certainly don't have to agree with everything, and we hope you don't. But, so that's what we're trying to do. Middle school, college, and career awareness is not something a whole lot of people are doing or even talking about in a lot of communities. Now, nationwide and in the academia world and those kinds of places, people are talking about it a lot, because college thing is changing quite rapidly, and what with school loans and those kinds of things. And so we want you to be aware of what people who are leading this are saying, and also what other communities are doing, so that you can take some of. We totally believe in not inventing the wheel. Somebody's invented a pretty good wheel. We're all about taking it and making it our own. So those are the kind of things that we are really scraping the internet for, and also our contacts for, in terms of finding things that are meaningful and engaging.
And so also monthly, that there's just, you see in the next bullets that there's video, there's online community of practice, and then there's interaction with coaches and mentors. And so it's just one of the things that we learned in the first cohort that I think has helped us in the second, is that there are a lot of expectations. Allison said, 2 to 3 hours per week, which I think over the year, it goes up and down, of course, but it is an intense project that you are expected to participate and be active on a very regular basis. So that's really key. And I think that that's something we're getting better at, Carol and I and the coaches, and how to make that happen. My dog's about to bark, sorry. And so really just keeping in mind that you are expected to participate, and it's not just one of those things where you go to the meeting in St. Louis, Salt Lake, and you're done. It's actually for the entire year. And then another part of that I just want to mention is that there is an end goal. You are not required to have something done within a month. We're looking for you to take a whole year almost to develop something that uses all the ideas we're presenting to you and you're learning about and you're trying out and all of that. So by the end, we do really want you to have something, a service that you've tried out. It doesn't have to be perfect, because Carol and I do not believe in perfection.
If it were perfect, you wouldn't need this. You wouldn't need to be even participating in this grant.
Yeah, exactly.
You have it nailed.
Right. So we just want you to try things out and get an idea about how to do this, and then keep it going. So we want to plant the seeds. Last in cohort 1, there's someone who didn't get her project off the ground, but she's still working on it, and that's awesome. She worked really hard. Things happened. It didn't happen take off, but now she's still working on it. And then we have lots of other kinds of things that might come up. So Allison just wrote a post for the community of practice, and it's going to go on the YALSA blog in a revised form. Last year, people went to conferences and are still doing conference presentations. So there's lots of different opportunities for you to then go out and help other people. But really key is that this is an ongoing project for 12 months. Allison and Carol,
Can I just say one thing about the feedback I constantly get from the participants in the cohorts is that if you are in a small or rural or remote library, then effective professional development is hard to come by. And that this is a project that is just swimming with professional development. Allison spoke to it just when she was talking, but you get to interact with people from all over the countries, but they are in similar situations, and if anybody's here who's representing a tribal library, that's really great. There's definitely people, in small libraries, rural libraries, there are a lot of similar issues and challenges. You get to talk to folks who are in exactly those kinds of situations. and you interact with them and vet things through with one another. So I just think that's something that I would be so craving if I were in a particular library like that, and it really works to be able to be in this cohort to do that. So I just wanted to throw that out.
I agree.
Yeah, Allison, anything else?
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with Carol as far as the professional development. You're just not going to find an opportunity that is this interactive. I just don't, I mean, it's just, I don't think it's probably one of the only times that you'll spend a year becoming an expert and working with other people that are learning and doing interactive things. I mean, and you really do make connections that are great. I know somebody we're going to meet up at ALA in New Orleans this year. A few of the from cohort 1 and cohort 2 are planning to meet up when we go to that conference. And I know that I'm not going to be able to go to ARSL this year, but I do know that other members are meeting up at ARSL. So the professional development just really continues throughout the cohorts, and it's really just a great opportunity to learn and continue learning. And like they said, they don't expect after you come back from Salt Lake that you have, it really is a year-long process, and they're not going to give an outline or examples of past projects, and that's not something you'll get, but you will get all of the tools that are necessary to develop a program or a service that'll work for your community.
That's great. Thank you.
Allison.
Are there any questions about what we were just those pieces that we were talking about? Next, we're going to talk about the application a little bit, but any questions about the ideas about what the year is like? What we're expecting?
I just have to say one thing that we sort of have been doing. We sort of are in the process of trying to hold people back a little bit. When people come out of the meeting, everybody is just so fired up, and so what we've been trying to do is to, kind of slow some people down and say, yes, that is a great idea. Now mull that over for a while. So it's an unusual project in that sort of way, I think.
Awesome. It's really funny. All right, I'm going to keep going, but feel free to ask questions or anyone or chime in, anyone. So the application is due May 15th, so 2 weeks from today. And you notice the capacity is on here 3 times because that really is important. We found out in cohort 1 that it was just more was required of people than we were actually than we let people know at the beginning, and it's the 2 to 3 weeks, but it's intense, and it is getting out of the building. Allison went to the Austin Library, as well as many other things that she's done. So it really is getting out of the building. And then the other thing I want to say about that, and you see the commitment, the capacity, but I also want to say one thing about the application itself is it says you have up to 250 words for something, or 300 words or whatever. Use that number of words. We need to know details. Carol and I go through the applications with other members of the review committee, so to speak. And one of the things that helps us make a decision, we have a rubric, but one of the things is if you give us details. So for example, a question that says, how will you make sure you have the time to do this work? Saying, I have lots of spare time in my job isn't really gonna give us much. But if you say, these are the things I will be able to do in my schedule. So be specific. And I do joke a lot with Carol and others and say, if you have those number of words, don't give me 2 words. Give me, not literally me, put in as many words as possible without obviously padding it, to tell us about you and give us a story about your, make us understands what your library is like, where you are, all those kinds of things, because that really will set your application apart. We get a lot of applications, and we need to make sure we get the people who can really do this work. So we want to
tell us how you've worked it out with your staff, or you're planning to work it out with your staff, your supervisor, because and I know some people don't have a staff. If you do have a staff, your focus on this will impact them some. We really want them to be as supportive as possible. So tell us about how you've talked it over with them, and how you can shift things around. You know, because that is the nuts and bolts really do matter of how you're going to do that. Nobody likes to be surprised and say, "Well, I've got this other thing I've got to do." So tell us how you're thinking through that, because even if you haven't done it yet, the thinking through of it process gives us information about you.
That's right. And similarly, when you're talking about how you've worked with a community partner or seen a need before, again, be specific. Don't say, I saw there was a need for a little library. That's not at all what we've seen. I saw there was a need for a little library, so I built one. Tell us where the need came from, how you worked with a community partner to do that, etc. And also think about what this project is about. So there's nothing wrong with creating a little library or doing something book oriented, but try and connect it to the community, the youth we're talking about, and the ideas of youth interests, etc. You don't have to have experience in that, but just think about ways that you could say, you know, and this is an example of the kind of thing I could do if I were given the ability to participate. I think that's a hard thing, and I realize that writing applications is hard. So the other thing is to get somebody else to look at it, get it reviewed by someone, etc. And one other thing I wanted to say about the application is that Allison mentioned that she got, like, you talked to people and said, here, I'm thinking about doing that. That's awesome. So as you're doing this, I think that's really good too.
And that's easy. And once you've done it, then it's easy to write it on the application, you know, that you've done that and met with your supervisor, or met with staff, or even talked to the middle school principal about how many middle schoolers your community serves, things like that.
Yeah. That's fantastic. That's a perfect example. And then at the next slide is just that the core project team, which is really me and Carol, and the members of the advisory committee review and select the cohort participants. We are able to take 35 participants this time around. So we'll have a good number, but also to say is that we do not take 35 if some of them are not up to what we're looking for, and we feel like they will be able to participate. So the application is still really important. We'll let people know by July 1st, and then you'll have to sign a memorandum of agreement that says you will come to Salt Lake, you will participate for the year, and different kinds of things you need to do as a result of being selected. So Linda,
can I ask a question? Do we have the exact dates in November yet?
Yes, we do. It is, I just have to look at my calendar.
Okay.
It's on the application, and it's November
1st and 2nd.
First and second.
First and second.
Okay. I actually do remember that now.
Full day of the first. People would fly in to Salt Lake or get to Salt Lake, however. On the 31st, it's a full day of the first and a half day of the second. And Kim, thanks. Let us know if you need anything.
Yeah, thank you for that, note. Yeah.
Yeah. So are there any questions about the process before we have a couple more slides? I'm actually going to go through to this slide. Just, you can still ask questions about the process, but this tells you what those who are selected. I don't like accepted. Maybe it is accepted. But are there questions about the process for selection?
I was just going to say, it might be while you're working on your application, it might be a good idea to either pick the phone or go by the school or shoot the principal or somebody in an administrative office an email and just make sure and ask, you know, is there anything offered by the school regarding college and career readiness services already in place? Because that can really help with answering the question about what the needs of your community are. If they say, no, we don't have anything, or no, they don't get, you know, we don't have any leadership classes. We aren't teaching social skills. We aren't teaching life skills. We don't have career exploration for middle school students. So that can really help you answer that question as well.
And even if they do, what you will be able to learn will be able to enhance what they're doing. So, but that's a really good point, Allison. To see what is already out there is always a great idea, you know. And we would like to know about your community and why your community, you believe your community would benefit from this.
That's a really good idea. And then also just seeing, you see here, and I realize there's one thing that's missing from this, and you do receive a YALSA membership, ALA/YALSA membership for a year. Because I was just going to mention the new journal, the new issue of YALS has articles about the Future Ready project from Laura from Cohort 1 and Anne from the current cohort. And that is a part of that's one of the perks. So if you're already an ALA member, you'll get YALSA membership if you're already for another year. If you're an ALA YALSA member, you'll get YALSA for another year. And if you're none of the above, you'll get it all for a year.
And it seems to as good a time as any to mention that Laura, the person in our first cohort and a coach in our second cohort, was invited to present at ALA this year regarding her project through this program. So it is a project that can get you a lot of visibility because the need is there, first of all, and people are looking at it. And like we have said so over and over, you will become your community's expert on this. So
absolutely. So that's all about the project that we had. So are there questions about next steps? And I'm wondering, Allison, and I'm asking this in public, but I'm wondering if you would be okay with giving out your email.
Of course, yes, no, yes.
Thank you.
I'll type it into the chat. Is that the best?
That's perfect. Just in case people are interested in getting in touch with you, because it's great to have someone who has done the work. Carol and I, you know, we're the administrators. How boring is that? Sorry, Carol. But anybody, thank you, Allison, but any general questions about the process, what you're going to be asked to do, the timeline, anything related to that? We still have 6 minutes.
Did you talk about the professional development materials you get? And
no. Talk about that, Allison.
So if you are selected, you will get training materials, and you'll get to select. I can't remember the amount of what
it's $250 worth. Okay. I think.
So you get to select $250 worth of materials, and those could be ebooks and books and other kind of professional development materials from YALSA. It's from YALSA, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And they also send you some extra goodies too. So that's always nice. But that's helpful. And especially if you don't have it in your budget to purchase those types of materials on a regular basis. So that's really beneficial. And if you do complete the project, you will receive a $500 stipend for a conference. Did I say that correctly?
You did say that, and I'm just having fun with this little.
I know, I see that.
I know, I never use it, and Allison, you gave me a reason to use it. So if you complete the project, you also will give you $500. You have to prove you're using this by registering for a conference. So it will pay $500 for going to a conference that helps you to continue learning about this topic. And then we will give you the $500, which you can use for the conference, not to buy dog toys. So those are, thank you, Allison, for reminding me about the perks and making sure we talked about them. So now, oops, I don't want to draw anymore. Now, any more questions? No, you're good? So I'm just gonna go to the next slide. Oh, I keep doing that, sorry. I want to clear. All right, this is why I don't use it. So the website for the Future Ready project, to learn more, probably many of you have seen that. The form, and you've probably seen that as well. And the form isn't created because we found out this causes more problems, but it's not where you can type stuff in and save it. So there is a PDF version that you could work from to start, and then when you're ready, you could insert all the info, due on May 15th, and then that's my email. If you have any questions about the overall pieces of the project, you should feel free to email me. Carol, a last word.
Do it. Do it. It's a lot of fun. I think you'll be glad that you did. It's really it's a very unique program in that we're really looking. It is all an experiment. If anybody knows exactly how to do this, you should stand up and talk about it, because nobody really does. So we are trying to find new ways to reach our community, and especially our middle school students. So do it. Come help us.
Yay. Allison.
Yes, I'm going to echo do it. It's really a great thing, no matter where you are in your career, whether you just started or you've been working in libraries for years and years and years. I think it's an excellent opportunity, no matter where you are, if you're new to teen services or you're not. So I say definitely do it. You will not regret it, and you will learn a lot.
There you go.
Thank you both. And I agree with do it. And it's just such a great way to help teens and your communities thrive, which is really what we all have, that goal, I think. So thank you all for participating. If you have any questions, let us know.